destined to remain in the shadow of Mbappe, or ready to light the torch paper under Project Bowley? Just how good is Christopher Nkunku? Nkunku has rapidly become an elite goal threat during his time in the Bundesliga. He isn't a goal-a-game type of threat like a Haaland, but he's a very well-rounded forward, and bearing that in mind, he's scoring more than enough. Question is, can he sustain those numbers coming into a tougher league like the Premier League? Now, breaking it down technically, Nkunku is an impressive finisher. We can see casual lob-type finishes, he makes them look effortless, he looks so composed 1v1, and it's the weak foot finishes which are just outstanding, dinked finishes with the weaker foot, and he makes it look as good as his natural foot. We also saw that left foot smash finish in the Champions League, which we can't really show here. Nkunku is a genuine 5-star weak foot, and he'll be a menace inside the box. From range, he can take free kicks, he's got the finesse technique. Nkunku has a sumptuous way of pass, which is evident statistically. He's got 58% accuracy for through balls, and you can feel that in the eye test too. He's got a great feel for his teammates' positioning, their level of athleticism, and that of his immediate opponents. And he reminds me a bit of an Henry in the way that he can pick out passes whilst on the run. He's got a range of different passes on his locker, and it all feels very unorthodox and flary, as if he can make up passes on the fly. The only drawback is that he doesn't make enough of these passes. He doesn't really have a number 10's mindset where he's constantly probing with these passes. Less than one through pass a game. That's a paltry amount. And yet he somehow secured 20 assists the season before this. So a certified goal and assist threat, and Chelsea would be advised to give him a free role to exploit his innate vision and encourage him to make more use of that killer pass. Nkunku has at times been used as a winger, but in truth it's a bad use of him. He doesn't dribble enough and doesn't progress the game enough to be used as a wing forward. In that sense, he's inferior to an Mbappe, who is a game-changing ball-carrying entity in his own right, can be used across the front three, and can lift a side on his own back. But that doesn't mean that Nkunku is an average dribbler. Far from it. He's got a range of tricks. He's got deceptive explosions of pace where he looks languid and then he turns on the afterburners, similar in that sense to an Anthony Martial. His close control in tight spaces is excellent, and when he's inside the box, the dribbling seems to become more precise. Hence, he scored some exceptionally mazy solo efforts. Through the middle, he can pick and choose when to dribble, and his passing threat keeps opponents guessing as to when he's going to push the throttle. So that's why you'd want him in the middle, because his dribbling can come more alive in that area of the pitch. Compared to other false 9 types, Nkunku touches the ball a similar amount. His 86% pass accuracy is mightily impressive and suggests that he's tailor-made for a ball retention type team. However, the eye test suggests that he does pass back the ball a lot. He's a big fan of using wall passes when he feels that someone's up against him. He's not as exciting as a Felix in terms of his general link-up play, but that doesn't mean he isn't efficient and reliable. He generally is someone that can be trusted back to goal, as his touch is going to be secure, and he'll be composed enough to spot where his teammates are even when deep in enemy territory. Because he is quite strong for his frame, it's very rare to see players muscle Nkunku off the ball when he's on the touchline waiting for support, and when running onto a bouncing ball, you at times see him flick it over people's heads quite effortlessly, or once he's got the ball under control, to keep twisting and turning by the edge of the box until there's an option to pass. Nkunku doesn't really put in many crosses, which further highlights his lack of suitability for the winger position. He does statistically boast a high level of accuracy, and it's not surprising when you consider his general football IQ, his feel for a weight of pass, and just how technically competent he is in terms of ball striking. What I would say is that the eye test is okay, but not groundbreaking. He's able to use his weak foot to pull out crosses to the far post or cutbacks to generate assists, and he again showcases that mastery of finesse in terms of bending in crosses, but there's nothing here that you'd say is in the above average bracket. It's a solid part of his game, it's not a liability, but I wouldn't expect him to become a world-class crosser of the ball. I don't think the statistics do Nkunku's long passing justice. He's got a really good switch of play with either foot. He can hit finesse long passes or laced long passes with outside swerve. His ambitious passes at times do not come off and they can be slightly overhit. but it's very Harry Kane-esque how he can just drop off the front line and start spreading the play with longer passes. I wouldn't put him in Harry Kane's league in terms of accuracy. I think the Englishman attempts more long passes and does it at a higher accuracy rate too. Not to mention from the eye test, his long passes seem to hurt teams even more. But this is still high level stuff from Nkunku for a centre forward to be hitting the long passes that he can hit. We now move on to one of Nkunku's undoubted weak points, and one that may prove fatal in his desire to be an EPL great: his heading. Now, not only does Nkunku fail to compete often, he fails to compete effectively, especially from long balls. He has a habit of backing into defenders with no real venom or tenacity, and he lets them just jump over him to win free headers. Where he can be effective is using headers when he's not really in close proximity to anyone and he flicks it on accurately to a teammate, but this is hardly difficult for a centre forward. In the box, again, Nkunku doesn't really offer anything of real substance. He can leap well, but there's no real conviction in his game and there's no real belief that he's going to get on the end of things. Nkunku is not an uber aggressive pressing forward, but neither is he a pressing liability. He will be a downgrade to Felix in this regard, and he has a generally languid feeling to his defending game. In terms of technique, his preference is to use the outside of the foot technique in terms of his tackling, and he does it pretty well, but don't expect him to be Chelsea's Firmino, despite him coming from an outfit like RB Leipzig, as some of his sprints to chase the ball do at times feel like afterthoughts. But when he does put the pedal to the metal, he can be pretty aggressive and scare goalkeepers into making mistakes. Can he be coached into becoming a hard-working forward? Well, yes, I think on paper he's quick. He does have decent defensive IQ in terms of knowing where to press, what are the pressing triggers, what angles to cut off, and his tackling technique does look solid. So I think this part of his game can be elevated, and it needs to be elevated, especially if he's going to be playing under Pochettino. Tactically, RB Leipzig are famed for their 4-2-2-2. Nkunku features as a left-sided forward in a front two and is usually the deeper lying, free-roaming striker of the pair. How would he fit into Chelsea? Well, if Felix is gone, Havertz is gone, it frees up the central berth for him. He's not played up front alone before, but in my opinion, he fits that profile of a deeper lying nine with two wing forwards either side of him. If he was to be put in a front two, I think that only works if Mudryk is also able to adapt to playing centre forward. Otherwise, they'd need to sign a new centre forward, and the existing talent like Mudryk, like Madueke, would not be able to play in the side unless you convert them into wide midfielders in that 4-2-2-2 structure. And I'm not sure if they're hardworking enough off the ball to make that work. Nkunku could also be used as an inside forward in a 3-4-2-1, and that could only work if Reece James is properly fit and consistently fit running down the right flank, but my gut feel is that he's too injury prone for Chelsea to really commit to a back five strategy, and also Pochettino is renowned more for his 4-2-3-1. For him to be a winger in a 4-2-3-1, you need it to be a lopsided formation where the fullback again takes care of the flank and Nkunku is given the freedom to roam off that flank. And I also don't think he's suited to being a Poch number 10. In terms of what traits Nkunku can bring, I think magic in the final third and a killer instinct that Havertz and Felix lacked, creativity to play in the likes of Mudryk and Madueke, but unfortunately, in terms of aerial presence inside the box, I think that's non-existent. So Chelsea will be robbed of a route to goal that they relied upon, for example, with Havertz's aerial presence. But Nkunku has that X factor to turn possession into goals if played up front. In conclusion, Nkunku is a sublime talent but with some glaring weaknesses. He's not as versatile as some would have you believe. He can only really feature in a central role and he isn't really a number 10, so that leaves limited scope for what system and position you can use him in. When you add the fact that he's not very good in the air either, suddenly you're looking at a player that could have been threatening intergenerational status, but in truth may not break through for France in sufficient enough time, and Deschamps likes his centre forwards to have heading ability and he doesn't really have that. So he's possibly scraping generational in terms of max potential. As for the positives, his game looks so well constructed in terms of its base level. He's very efficient, elite decision maker, very calm individual who calmly chooses the right moments to explode. Hence why some of his performances in the bigger games, especially in the Champions League, have really caught the eye. Considering the fee that Chelsea have paid in the modern market, I think that looks like a bargain because he is a bona fide Champions League knockout level player already, and at the age of 25 he's got another 5 years. Mudryk could really hit it off, and when you add Madueke into the mix too, I think it's a very dynamic, modern front three with a lot of flair and interchangeability. I can't see him scoring less than 15 goals in the league next year, and once he settles, Chelsea will be hoping he's scoring a minimum of 25 goals a season. He's not a Havertz, Firmino type of false nine that doesn't have the desire or the feel for scoring goals. This lad is also a killer inside the box. Anyway guys,